Welcome back to my Observe Abram channel. Your brain sees millions of things every single day. Faces, voices, smells, emotions. Yet only a few of them stay with you as memories. Why? Does your brain have some kind of selection committee? Is there a hidden algorithm deciding which memories become permanent and which ones get deleted? And what if I told you that your brain is not a single processor, but a network of thousands of tiny brains working together? This idea comes from a powerful theory introduced in 1,000 Brains, a new theory of intelligence proposed by neuroscientist Jeff Hawkins. Today we're going to take a deep dive into how the brain chooses what to remember, what the 1,000 Brain theory really is, and how it completely redefines our understanding of intelligence. Let's begin. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do before I disappear somewhere. Welcome back. Now that we know the brain sees millions of things every day but remembers only a few, let's dive into how memory actually works. Memory is not just one thing, it's a process. Your brain takes in information, stores it, and retrieves it when needed. Scientists usually divide memory into three main stages. 1. Encoding. This is the first step. It's how your brain notices and processes information. For example, when you meet someone new, your brain encodes their face, voice, and name. But if you weren't paying attention, the memory might never form. Storage. Once encoded, memories are stored in different parts of the brain. Some stay for a few seconds or minutes, like remembering a phone number long enough to dial it. Others are stored long-term, sometimes for years. But storing memories isn't free. Your brain uses energy for each memory, which is why it can't remember everything. 3. Retrieval. Finally, retrieval is when your brain brings a memory back. This is why you might suddenly remember a childhood event after smelling a certain perfume. Retrieval can be imperfect. Sometimes you misremember details. Here's an important point. The brain is selective. Not every sight, sound, or feeling becomes a memory. Your brain prioritizes things based on attention, emotion, and repetition. We just saw that memory is a process, encoding, storage, and retrieval, and that the brain is selective about what it keeps. So why do some memories stick while others vanish? The answer lies in attention and emotion. Attention, the gatekeeper of memory. Your brain processes millions of signals every second, but it can't focus on everything. Attention acts like a spotlight. When you focus on something, your brain encodes it more deeply. Example, you meet someone at a party. If you're distracted by your phone, you might forget their name. But if you're fully paying attention, the memory is more likely to stick. Attention also prioritizes things that are novel, unusual, or personally important. Geolt emotion, the memory amplifier. Emotions make memories stronger. That's why you clearly remember your first day at school, a shocking accident, a funny joke that made you laugh uncontrollably. When an event triggers strong emotion, your brain releases chemicals like adrenaline and dopamine, which enhance memory formation. Emotional memories often last years, sometimes a lifetime. 3. Repetition, strengthening the pathways. Repetition reinforces memory. Every time you revisit a memory, through thought, conversation, or practice, the neural pathway strengthens. Example, learning a new skill like playing guitar becomes easier the more you practice. Our key takeaway, your brain doesn't store everything equally. It's like a filter. Attention decides what enters. Emotion decides how strong it becomes. Repetition decides how long it lasts. And this selective process is just the beginning. Attention, emotion, and repetition help your brain decide which experiences are important enough to become memories. But once that selection is made, where do these memories go? Deep inside your brain lies a small but powerful structure called the hippocampus. You can think of it as the brain's memory librarian, responsible for organizing and filing the memories you create. The hippocampus is in charge of turning short-term memories into long-term memories. Without it, experiences might be fleeting, lasting only a few seconds. For example, people with damage to this area can interact normally, but fail to form new lasting memories. It doesn't just store memories, it also links them to context, like where something happened, when it happened, and how it made you feel. That's why you might vividly remember a specific birthday party or a shocking event from years ago. However, the hippocampus alone doesn't hold memories forever. That job is handled by the cortex, where memories are distributed across countless neural networks. This distributed system is what the thousand brain theory highlights. Your brain doesn't rely on a single center, but instead uses thousands of mini brains working together to store and reconstruct memories. Traditionally, scientists imagined the brain as a hierarchy. Sensory information flows upward. Eyes and ears send data to the visual and auditory cortex, then to higher centers, and finally to a decision-making or command center. Memory, perception, and intelligence were thought to be controlled by a few top areas, but this view doesn't fully explain how the brain works. For example, how can you recognize a familiar face even if it's partially hidden, or predict what will happen next in a complex situation? Neuroscientist Jeff Hawkins proposed a new idea. The brain is not a single processor. Instead, it contains thousands of mini-brains, each capable of learning and modeling the world independently. These mini-brains, called cortical columns, work together, creating a distributed system that is far more flexible and powerful than the traditional hierarchy model. In this system, there is no single boss. Each cortical column has its own understanding of the world and communicates with others. When you perceive something, multiple columns send their predictions and the brain combines them into a single coherent experience. This approach helps explain several mysteries of the brain. How we recognize objects under different conditions, how we can predict outcomes based on incomplete information, how memory remains resilient even if parts of the brain are damaged. And this idea of distributed intelligence sets the stage for the thousand brain theory, which we'll explore next, showing exactly how your brain uses these mini-brains to process information and decide what to remember. If the traditional model treats the brain like a hierarchy with a single command center, the thousand brain theory offers a completely new perspective. According to neuroscientist Jeff Hawkins, the brain doesn't rely on one central system to understand the world. Instead, it contains thousands of mini-brains, called cortical columns, that each create their own model of the environment. Think of it like a city with many independent observers. Each observer watches the world, makes predictions, and learns patterns. Individually, they understand part of the picture, but together, through communication and consensus, they create a cohesive and accurate perception. This explains why your brain is so powerful. It can recognize objects from different angles. It can predict what will happen next. It can recall memories, even if parts of the brain are damaged. In other words, the brain functions more like a network of mini-intelligences than a single processor. Each cortical column is learning, predicting, and contributing to your perception and memory. This distributed approach also changes the way we think about memory. Instead of storing information in one place, your experiences are distributed across thousands of columns, making memory more robust and adaptable. Next, we'll take a closer look at these cortical columns, the building blocks of the thousand brain theory, and see exactly how they function in your brain. So far, we've seen that the brain is not a single processor, but a network of thousands of mini-brains. Now let's dive deeper into these cortical columns, the building blocks of the thousand brain theory. Cortical columns are vertical structures in the cortex, roughly 0.5 millimeters wide, and each one acts like a small independent brain. There are about 150,000 cortical columns in the human neocortex, and each can learn patterns, make predictions, and store information. Every column receives sensory input, like sight, sound, or touch, and builds its own model of the world. For example, one column might understand a corner of your room, while another focuses on your coffee cup. Individually, their understanding is limited, but collectively they create a complete perception. What makes them remarkable is their independence and communication. Each column can make predictions based on what it knows, and when multiple columns share their predictions, the brain combines them into a single coherent experience. This distributed system explains how humans can recognize objects from unusual angles, understand complex environments quickly, maintain memory even when parts of the brain are damaged. In essence, your brain's power comes from this collaboration of thousands of mini-brains, each contributing a piece to the larger picture. Next, we'll explore how these mini-brains help your brain decide what to remember, linking cortical columns with memory formation. With thousands of cortical columns working together, memory in the brain is no longer stored in a single place. Each experience is distributed across many columns, making memory much more resilient and flexible. This means even if some parts of the brain are damaged, other columns can reconstruct the memory, allowing you to remember events or recognize objects despite injury or age-related changes. Cortical columns don't just store information, they also predict outcomes and fill in missing details. For instance, you can recognize a partially hidden object or anticipate what will happen in a familiar situation. Memory becomes not just a record of the past, but a dynamic, predictive process, while attention, emotion, and repetition still influence what gets encoded. It's now clear that each cortical column contributes to deciding what becomes a lasting memory. Together, these columns create a robust, distributed system that explains why human memory is so powerful and adaptable. This perspective changes the way we think about learning, intelligence, and memory. The brain is not a simple storage device, but a network of mini-intelligences, all collaborating to process, predict, and remember the world around us. Our brain doesn't just store information. It learns from everything we experience. Each cortical column constantly observes patterns in the world and updates its internal model. Every sight, sound, touch, and movement helps the brain refine its predictions and memories. Learning through experience is why hands-on activities often stick better than just reading or listening. When you practice a skill, your brain's mini-brains are repeatedly exposed to the same patterns, strengthening the connections between neurons and making the memory more reliable. Even small movements or subtle sensory feedback contribute. For example, when you learn to ride a bike, it's not just your conscious effort. Thousands of mini-brains across your cortex are observing, predicting, and adjusting your balance and coordination. Over time, repeated experiences allow the brain to generalize. It can recognize objects, situations, or patterns it hasn't seen before, because each cortical column has learned from multiple similar experiences. This is how humans can adapt quickly in new environments, solve problems, and develop complex skills. The thousand brain theory explains that learning is not centralized. Instead, it emerges naturally from the collaboration of thousands of mini-brains, each learning independently, but contributing to the overall understanding of the world. With thousands of cortical columns working independently, the brain faces a challenge: how to combine all these separate predictions and models into a single coherent perception. This is where the consensus mechanism comes in. Each cortical column sends its own predictions about what it senses and expects. Some columns may have slightly different interpretations. For example, one column sees a corner of an object, another sees a shadow. The brain compares all these mini-models, weighs them, and forms a unified understanding of what is happening. This process explains why perception feels seamless. You don't consciously notice that thousands of mini-brains are working simultaneously. Instead, you experience a single, clear reality. It also ensures accuracy and reliability in memory and decision-making. Because the system is distributed, the brain can tolerate errors. If one cortical column misinterprets something, others can compensate. This is why humans can recognize objects from unusual angles or under poor lighting conditions. The consensus mechanism also plays a role in learning and prediction. Each column updates its model based on feedback from the environment and the collective input from other columns. Over time, this collaboration makes your brain highly adaptable, capable of learning from new experiences, correcting mistakes, and continuously improving its understanding of the world. Even with this sophisticated system, memory is not perfect. The brain sometimes makes mistakes or forgets information, and the thousand brain theory helps explain why. Since memories are distributed across thousands of cortical columns, recalling an event is actually a reconstruction. Each column contributes a piece of the memory, and the brain pieces them together. Sometimes small errors in individual columns can lead to misremembering details or forming false memories. Forgetting is also a natural part of this system. The brain prioritizes memories that are important, repeated, or emotionally significant. Less relevant information may fade over time because the neural pathways weaken when they aren't used. This selective forgetting is not a flaw. It helps the brain manage energy efficiently and keeps memory storage focused on what matters most. Additionally, predictions influence memory. If the brain expects something to happen a certain way, it may unconsciously fill in gaps in memory to match expectations. That's why eyewitness accounts can differ, or why you might remember a story differently than it actually happened. In essence, the collaboration of thousands of mini-brains makes memory powerful and resilient, but also dynamic and reconstructive. It's not a perfect recording, it's a living, adaptable system that balances accuracy, prediction, and efficiency. Understanding the thousand brain theory isn't just academic. It has real-life applications that can improve how we learn, remember, and interact with the world. Building on these applications, there are practical strategies to enhance your memory and learning, using the insights from the thousand brain theory. 1. Focused attention. Minimize distractions while learning. Each cortical column needs clear, undivided input to encode patterns effectively. Even short bursts of focused attention are better than long, distracted sessions. 2. Repetition. Revisiting information multiple times strengthens connections across columns. Spaced repetition, revisiting material at intervals, is particularly effective because it reinforces memory over time. 3. Emotional engagement. Connect learning with feelings or experiences. If a lesson or task triggers curiosity, excitement, or even mild challenge, your brain encodes it more deeply. 4. Hands-on experience. Engaging multiple senses, touch, sight, hearing, movement, allows more columns to participate in learning. Skills like sports, music, or crafts are remembered better because they involve distributed cortical processing. Visualization and prediction. When learning new concepts, try to predict outcomes or mentally simulate scenarios. This activates cortical columns that are used in real-world experiences, strengthening memory and understanding. By applying these strategies, you work with the brain's natural architecture, not against it. You take advantage of the distributed, predictive, and adaptive nature of cortical columns to learn faster, retain more, and apply knowledge effectively. Because each cortical column learns patterns independently, repetition and experience become crucial. When you practice a skill repeatedly, like playing an instrument, speaking a new language, or cooking a recipe, you're giving your mini-brains multiple opportunities to observe, predict, and encode patterns. This strengthens memory naturally. Attention also plays a key role. Focusing fully on a task helps multiple cortical columns encode the experience accurately. That's why hands-on learning is often more effective than passive reading or listening. Emotion is another powerful factor. Experiences that trigger feelings, whether joy, surprise, or even mild stress, are encoded more strongly. This explains why you remember your first day at school or a particularly emotional conversation better than ordinary days. Even in problem-solving or decision-making, understanding that your brain relies on thousands of mini-models can help. For instance, breaking down complex tasks into smaller, manageable patterns aligns with how cortical columns naturally learn. By giving your brain clear, repeated exposure to patterns, you enhance memory, learning, and prediction. These principles can also be applied to teaching, coaching, or training AI systems, showing that learning is most effective when distributed, repeated, and emotionally engaging. Throughout this journey, we've explored how your brain decides what to remember, starting from the basics of memory to the revolutionary thousand brain theory. We began by understanding that memory isn't just a simple storage system. It's a process, encoding, storage, and retrieval, influenced by attention, emotion, and repetition. Then we looked at the hippocampus, the brain's memory gatekeeper, which organizes experiences before they are stored across the cortex. Traditional models viewed the brain as a hierarchy, but the thousand brain theory reveals a far more powerful picture. Thousands of cortical columns, each acting as a mini-brain, learning patterns, making predictions, and collaborating to form a unified understanding of the world. This distributed architecture explains how memory is resilient, adaptive, and predictive. We explored how cortical columns work together through a consensus mechanism, how memory can reconstruct and sometimes misremember, and why forgetting is a natural and energy-efficient part of brain function. We also saw how these insights are transforming artificial intelligence, inspiring systems that are flexible, predictive, and resilient, just like the human brain. Finally, we discussed practical applications for everyday life, improving learning through focused attention, repetition, emotional engagement, hands-on experience, and prediction. By understanding the natural architecture of our brain, we can learn smarter, remember better, and adapt faster. The thousand brain theory doesn't just explain memory, it redefines intelligence. It shows that human cognition is not centralized, but distributed, dynamic, and collaborative, and it offers a roadmap for both enhancing our own abilities and designing more human-like AI. Your brain is a network of thousands of mini-intelligences, constantly learning, predicting, and remembering. By understanding and working with this system, we unlock the true power of human memory and intelligence.